The Galactic Concord Assembly was built to intimidate. A hollowed asteroid the size of a small moon, its inner chamber arched upward in layered rings of stone, alloy, and light. Every species that mattered had a seat here, arranged not by equality, but by influence. The higher the tier, the closer to the ceiling. Humanity sat low. Elias Ward stood at the human podium, hands clasped behind his back, eyes steady as a dozen alien gazes slid over him with open disinterest. The Vorrath delegation occupied an upper tier, massive, scaled forms wrapped in ceremonial armor. Their leader, High Warlord Karzun, reclined as though the assembly were his personal throne room. A murmur passed through the chamber. "Humans request recognition," announced the Concord Arbiter. Karzun chuckled, the sound sharp and wet. "Again?" Ward ignored him. He activated the holo projector. A rotating image of a human frontier colony appeared, Helios 9. Mining domes, civilian habitation rings, transport lanes. Nothing strategic. Nothing threatening. "This colony lies within recognized human territory," Ward said evenly. "We have detected Vorrath fleet movement within striking distance. Let me be clear." He paused, allowing the silence to settle. "Any attack on human civilians will be treated as an act of war." The reaction was immediate and dismissive. Laughter rippled across several tiers. A delegate from the Kale Union flicked their fronds in amusement. Even the Arbiter's luminescent form dimmed slightly, as if embarrassed on humanity's behalf. Karzun leaned forward. "You issue warnings," he said, voice amplified by Concord acoustics. "But you have no record of enforcing them." Ward met his gaze. "We prefer diplomacy." The Vorrath warlord bared his teeth. "Then you will enjoy your preference." The Arbiter struck the floor with a pulse of light. "The Concord acknowledges the statement. No further action will be taken at this time." That was it. No sanctions. No investigations. The session moved on. Ward stepped away from the podium without another word. 3 systems away, the Vorrath War Council gathered aboard the flagship Dominion of Ash. Tactical glyphs floated above a circular dais, glowing red against the dark. Karzun stood at the center, claws resting on the edge. "The humans posture," one commander said. "But their fleets remain dispersed." "As expected," Karzun replied. "They are new. They still believe survival comes from being liked." A younger officer hesitated. "The warning was noise," Karzun snapped. "Fear wears many disguises. This one is called restraint." He gestured, and the projection shifted to Helios 9. Sparse defenses. Civilian traffic. No standing battle group. "We will strike here," he said. "Not for resources. For example." The council inclined their heads in approval. "Broadcast the assault," Karzun added. "Let the galaxy see what happens when warnings are empty." Helios 9 never saw them coming. The first sign was the sky tearing open as Vorrath cruisers dropped from slip space. Emergency alarms screamed across the colony, echoing through domes and tunnels. Civilian transports scrambled, only to be cut down by precision fire. Orbital platforms fired back, outdated rail systems spitting defiance into the void. They were erased within minutes. On the ground, Vorrath shock units punched through habitat walls, sealing exits, hurting civilians with stun pulses and gravity snares. Resistance was brief and desperate. Mining crews armed with cutting tools against armored invaders. It changed nothing. A human administrator tried to open a channel. The response was silence, then a barrage that leveled the command center. From orbit, Karzun watched the feeds with clinical interest. "Maintain casualties below structural collapse thresholds," he ordered. "We want survivors." A Vorrath officer glanced up. "For labor?" "For the message," Karzun corrected. Cities burned. Power grids failed. Helios 9 went dark, section by section, until only emergency beacons remained. Then the broadcast began. Across the Concord, across neutral space, across human territory, the footage played: flames, fleeing civilians, Vorrath banners planted in shattered ground. A final transmission was encoded and sent directly to Earth. Elias Ward received it in the command center beneath Geneva. The room was quiet, screens lining the walls filled with data streams and tactical overlays. No one spoke as the footage ended. A Vorrath symbol filled the display. Curzon's voice followed. "Your warning has been reviewed," the warlord said. "It has been dismissed." The feed cut. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a junior officer exhaled sharply. "Sir?" Ward raised a hand. His expression hadn't changed. "Casualty estimates?" he asked. "Still coming in. Significant civilian losses. Survivors taken." Ward nodded once. "Close the channel." "What about retaliation?" another officer asked. "The Concorde will do nothing," Ward finished. "They always do." He turned away from the screen and faced the room. "Effective immediately, all external communications are suspended. Fleet movements will appear defensive only. No statements. No threats." The officers exchanged uncertain looks. "We just lost a colony," someone said quietly. "Yes," Ward replied. "And we gained clarity." He keyed a secure console. Systems that did not officially exist came online: deep archives, dormant protocols, long-sealed authorizations. "Humanity has issued its warning," Ward said. "It will not issue another." Outside the bunker, the world went on unaware. News networks speculated. Alien analysts debated. The Vorrath celebrated. Across the galaxy, the silence was interpreted as fear. Commander Elias Ward watched the star map shift into its new configuration and allowed himself a single, private thought. They had been warned. And now, they would learn what humans did after the talking stopped. Silence unsettled the galaxy more than outrage ever had. In the days following the fall of Helios 9, the United Human Coalition issued no protests, no condemnations, no appeals to the Galactic Concorde. Human trade vessels altered routes. Diplomatic channels went unanswered. Military traffic withdrew inward, forming tight, unremarkable defensive shells around core systems. To the Concorde, it looked like hesitation. Analysts filled chambers with theories. Political fracture. Civil unrest. Fear of escalation. The Kale Union published a report labeling humanity strategically paralyzed. Several minor species quietly began renegotiating trade terms, assuming human influence was about to collapse. The Vorrath Empire interpreted the silence correctly, just not accurately. High Warlord Curzon stood before his war council, basking in approval as reports streamed in. No counterattack. No fleet surge. No retaliation of any kind. "They retreat into themselves," one commander said. "As prey does." Curzon nodded. "Fear compresses the weak. It simplifies them." He turned toward a tactical projection showing human space. "Prepare the next phase. We will advance slowly. Let dread ferment." A warning glyph flickered at the edge of the display, an unexplained sensor lost near Vorrath territory. Curzon dismissed it without comment. Beneath Earth's surface, the human command complex had no windows, no banners, and no sense of ceremony. It was built for endurance, not inspiration. Commander Elias Ward stood at the center of a circular operations pit as layers of information stacked themselves into coherence. Unlike the Concorde, this room did not debate. It refined. "We're being underestimated," an intelligence officer said, not looking up from her console. Ward gave a thin smile. "Good." He gestured, and the star map reconfigured. Vorrath space expanded, overlaid with glowing nodes, shipyards, logistics hubs, data relays, fuel depots. "We're not striking their borders," Ward said. "We're cutting their circulation." A naval strategist frowned. "No fleet engagement?" "None," Ward replied. "Battles are spectacles. We're not here to perform." A younger officer hesitated. "Sir, the Concorde will issue statements," Ward interrupted, "while we issue results." He activated a secondary layer. Black markers appeared, unlabeled, unregistered. These assets don't officially exist, Ward continued. They don't carry flags, signatures, or predictable weapon profiles. Their mission parameters are adaptive. If the enemy learns, the method changes. Someone swallowed audibly. Ward's voice remained level. We strike where the Vorrath cannot afford awareness. We remove their ability to project force before they understand they're under attack. The room absorbed the plan in silence. Timeline? The strategist asked. Ward checked the chronometer. They've already missed it. The Vorrath shipyard at Korvesh was one of the Empire's proudest achievements. A ring of armored platforms orbiting a red dwarf, capable of producing capital-class warships in synchronized assembly. Its defenses were layered, redundant, and designed to repel conventional assaults. No alarm sounded. Maintenance crews noticed power fluctuations first. Minor, inconsistent, dismissed as stellar interference. Then gravity alignment failed in one section, causing a half-constructed cruiser to shear itself apart. Engineers scrambled. Command demanded explanations. They never got them. Space folded. Not violently. Not dramatically. It simply misbehaved. The shipyard ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris cloud. Just an absence where something vast had been moments before. Sensors reported conflicting data before resetting themselves. The red dwarf burned on, indifferent. Across Vorrath command networks, confusion spread. What weapon was used? Demanded one fleet captain. No residue detected, replied another. No radiation spike. No signature matching known armaments. Karzan watched the report in disbelief. Accident? A pause. No, High Warlord. Silence followed, thick, uncomfortable. Within hours it happened again. A fuel depot vanished near Vorrath frontier space. Then a communications relay failed, its data core wiped clean without structural damage. A convoy went missing mid-transit, last telemetry showing calm, steady flight. The pattern emerged too quickly to deny. These were not attacks meant to be seen. They were corrections. The Galactic Concord convened an emergency intelligence session. Projections filled the chamber, highlighted in alarming amber. This is not conventional warfare, an analyst said. The humans are bypassing engagement entirely. A delegate whispered. Then what are they doing? The analyst swallowed. Removing capacity. A classified report circulated moments later. Its conclusion was brief. Humanity is not fighting the Vorrath Empire. Humanity is dismantling it. Karzan stood alone in his command chamber, claws flexing as updates poured in. Ship production delayed. Supply lines destabilized. Fleet readiness declining without visible cause. This is impossible, he growled. They have no fleets near our space. An aide spoke carefully. Perhaps they do not need them. Karzan turned, eyes narrowing. Explain. The aide hesitated. Their strikes do not provoke response. They do not announce intent. They deny us targets. The warlord felt something unfamiliar coil in his chest, not fear, but irritation sharpened by uncertainty. Open a channel, he ordered. I will speak to this human commander. The signal cut through layers of encryption before resolving. Elias Ward appeared on the screen, calm as ever. You will cease these attacks, Karzan said without preamble. This response is disproportionate. Ward tilted his head slightly. You attacked a civilian colony. That was enforcement. That was a choice, Ward replied. Karzan leaned closer to the display. You risk annihilation. Ward's eyes hardened, not with anger, but with finality. No, he said. You already chose that risk. The channel closed. Back in the command complex, an officer exhaled. They're starting to notice. Ward nodded. They were always going to. He turned back to the map. Vorrath space flickered, systems dimming in sequence, like lights being shut off in a vast, arrogant hall. Continue, he said. Across the galaxy, species watched the once invincible Vorrath Empire stumble without knowing where the blow had come from. or how many were still on the way. And for the first time in centuries, the Concorde felt something dangerously close to all. Humanity had stopped talking, and the silence was proving lethal. The Vorrath Empire had no warning for what came next, not because humans had failed to signal, but because the galaxy had never understood them. The strikes had already reshaped the Empire from the shadows, production grids failed, supply lines evaporated, communication networks fragmented. Now, the collapse reached the core. High Warlord Curzon stared at the display in disbelief. Entire fleet squadrons had ceased responding. Shipyards that had been fully functional 24 hours prior were now silent voids. Power cores had tripped simultaneously across multiple systems, leaving orbital stations dead in space. His generals were panicked, clawing at data streams that no longer held answers. "This is impossible," a senior officer said, voice trembling. "There's no fleet, no attack signature, nothing to explain it." Curzon's claws flexed against the edge of his command console. "Impossible is a word for those unwilling to adapt," he snapped. "Find the human source. Track it. I want it destroyed." His aides shook their heads. Sensors and analysis revealed nothing. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. Their moves were surgical, precise, invisible. Curzon's eyes narrowed. The realization settled slowly, burning like acid. Humanity had not responded as expected because they had never been responding at all. They had been removing the threat entirely, systematically dismantling the Empire from a distance, without exposing themselves to counterattack. He activated a secure channel. A thin beam of light cut through the void of space, connecting him directly to Commander Elias Ward. Ward's figure appeared calm, composed, the backdrop of the human command center sharp and cold. He did not smile. He did not threaten. He simply observed, the weight of inevitability in his posture. "You are losing control," Curzon said sharply. "You must stop this. The destruction is disproportionate." Ward's eyes held a quiet, precise clarity. "You attack civilians." Proportion ended there. A pause. Curzon's jaw tightened. "You think you can dictate consequences to an empire older than your species?" Ward's voice did not waver. "We are not dictating. We are correcting. You were warned." The channel closed before the warlord could respond. Silence followed, deeper and more suffocating than the vacuum outside his flagship. Across the Empire, chaos spread. Human operations had never been about spectacle. No grand fleet engagement. No dramatic bombardments. Instead, carefully targeted actions had rendered the Vorrath machine inoperative. Supply lines disconnected. Maintenance schedules sabotaged. Critical infrastructure deactivated without force, like a patient surgeon disabling a tumor before the body reacts. Entire warships sat in orbit, systems online but unresponsive. Starports were locked, unable to release vessels. Communication hubs relayed empty data streams. Every movement of the Vorrath command structure was anticipated and neutralized. Each failure fed the next, a chain reaction of systemic collapse. Curzon convened his generals. The War Council chamber, once vibrant with the hiss of planning and strategy, was now filled with silence punctuated by low murmurs. "This is not random," Curzon said, voice tight. "They are calculating, precise, everywhere." An officer whispered, "They're inside our networks, not just attacking, but controlling outcomes." "Then we adapt," Curzon growled. "We mobilize every fleet. Every system. Every soldier." Ward watched the sensors feed through his console. Human fleets did not mobilize. Human stations did not move. Yet the Empire continued to unravel, as if the humans had preempted every possibility. A senior strategist leaned over Ward's console. "The core is now vulnerable. Do we strike the capital?" Ward shook his head. "No. Let them collapse on themselves. Let their arrogance finish the job." The human approach was subtle. Vorrath orbital defenses failed as planetary grids were disabled. Logistics depots collapsed when transport protocols were overridden. Communication lines turn inert when routed through human-controlled relays. Each act was surgical, targeted, and silent. The Empire could not fight what it could not see, and it could not survive what it did not understand. Curzon, growing frantic, attempted one last offensive. He sent fleets toward human space, hoping to lure them into conventional battle. Nothing happened. Sensors reported no human presence. Fleets returned empty-handed, as if the systems themselves had evaporated. His generals, desperate, demanded explanations. "Where are their forces?" one asked. "Every report shows nothing." Curzon slammed his claws against the console. "They are ghosts. Ghosts with precision and patience. Find them." Ward activated the final stage. A network of human strike teams executed coordinated maneuvers across multiple Vorrath systems simultaneously. The effect was complete. Supply chains shredded, production halted, morale shattered. Entire planetary sectors fell silent. No human casualties reported. And then the Empire's core, its central hub of governance, went dark. The silence was absolute. A complete absence of command, communication, and structure. Curzon's own flagship drifted among inert fleets, powerless. He activated a final communication channel. Ward appeared again. "High Warlord," Ward said evenly. "You were warned. You cannot be allowed to, you cannot." Curzon's voice broke. "This Empire cannot fall to a species like yours." Ward did not flinch. "It already has. You chose the risk." The channel terminated. The warlord was left staring at a void of his own making, the empire he had controlled for decades now disintegrating not through fire or fury, but through methodical precision he could not comprehend. Across the galaxy, the news arrived in dribs and flashes. The Galactic Concord convened emergency sessions. Reports were verified, data confirmed. The Vorrath Empire, the dominant military force for centuries, was incapacitated without a conventional battle. Analysts struggled to describe it. Historians searched for precedent. None existed. Delegates, for the first time, spoke of humanity not with derision, but with a mixture of awe and fear. "They do not fight," one whispered. "They correct." Others nodded, voices hushed. "And they do so without declaration. Without ceremony. Without malice. Only efficiency." Humanity had rewritten the rules of conflict. Not with brute strength, but with patience, planning, and inevitability. The galaxy understood, at last, the full meaning of the warning Ward had issued at the assembly. Do not challenge humans. Back on Earth, Ward watched the rotation of the planet from the observation deck of the command complex. Lights flickered across continents, life continuing, unaware of the void in the stars where empires had fallen. A young officer approached. "Sir, will anyone test us again?" Ward's gaze remained fixed on the horizon. "Only once," he said softly. "And they will regret it." The room was quiet. Outside, humanity's world rotated in calm, indifferent majesty, while distant stars reflected the remnants of an empire undone. No celebration followed. No cheering. The lesson had been delivered with precision, and the galaxy would remember it. Humans had spoken once, through warning. Then they had stopped talking. And the silence had spoken louder than any weapon.